Hello there. It is a really good day because today I have my favorite guest back for another video. Jaycee Gaspar is here. I have had him as a guest a couple times before, and he has always been very popular, and I am his biggest fan. The things that Jaycee can do to make flowers come alive on cards is outstanding. Jaycee's daytime job is as a scientist, and his hobby is working in the garden. So you will see a lot of that knowledge come out today. He's incredibly intelligent and very, very creative. Jaycee will be using the Altenew Keyhole system layering dies. These are always popular, and he has some additional tips for using them. And these dies are available for purchase individually, or you can sign up for a subscription to save. Okay, here's Jaycee.
It's Jaycee Gaspar. I'm a full-time scientist and part-time card maker and content creator. Thanks so much to Jennifer for letting me back on her channel to let me share with you one of the latest innovations in card making. If you follow me on Instagram or have seen some of the cards that I love making, you'll know that flower cards give me life. It's what puts me at ease, and I love when stamping companies make crafting more accessible and enjoyable. Altenew masters florals and gorgeous layers, and as an Altenew certified educator, one of the things I'm passionate about is showing beginner to advanced crafters a different way of making. With Altenew's innovative keyhole system, you'll have all the tools you need to make nearly lifelike bouquets. You just need your personal style and your favorite techniques, many of which Jennifer has already shown you on her channel. Let me show you everything I know about Altenew's Keyhole system. This system is mostly found on the monthly Craft a Flower release, but some of your newer dies may also contain this state-of-the-art layering system. By the way, subscribing to the Altenew Craft a Flower secures your stock of future releases and offers an exclusive discount and savings. So if you're excited to see future flowers in the Craft a Flower series, I encourage you to check out the Altenew site in the description box. These layering dies feature these small symbols and layered embossing. You can create lifelike florals in just 3 easy steps. First, you'll want to die cut all the images found on the back of the Altenew die set packaging. Then you'll want to align the coordinating symbol. It can be a keyhole, triangle, pill shape, arrow. Finally, you'll glue the layers in chronological order, and what you're left with are easy focal points to start building stunning bouquets. Now, this wouldn't be a Jennifer video without some demonstrations, and I'll try to do some justice on here by showing you a few examples. This layering set that I've been showing so far is the July 2024 Craft a Flower Amaryllis. The most recent development and innovation in the Craft a Flower die sets is that most of your layers needed for a single flower can be contained on one die. And this die set is perfectly sized to fit on the cardstock sets that fit inside the Altenew Mini Blossom die cutting machine. Most of the time, flower center layers like stamens and anthers are on separate dies so that you can cut them from other colors of cardstock. I'm cutting the arrow alignment dies from Blush Crafting Necessities solid cardstock. I'll use the Mini Blossom die cutting machine to cut this arrow alignment group of Amaryllis petals. And then I'll cut the stamen and anthers from white cardstock. One of the things that helps me plan for color placement on these blooms is to do a dry fit of all the layers that I cut. So I'm not applying any glue to the layers yet, and I'm following the layering guide starting from the first layer all the way to the final layer. The final layer discreetly covers the layering cutout, allowing for effortless placement of all the layers. Nearly each layer has a debossed number, so you can easily reference which image you need to grab next. Doing this dry fit helps me gauge how far I want to color these layers for more dramatic and lifelike blooms. Here's the fun part. I'm going to add as many details as I feel to make this Amaryllis inflorescence look a little bit more lifelike. I'm referencing a coral-colored Amaryllis image with a deep black center, kind of like a red poppy. I'm using my Altenew Sticky Mat grid to grip my blush cardstock die cuts, and Red Sunset fresh dye inks to color the layers. The blush color cardstock coordinates with the blush ink in Red Sunset, making this a seamless and effortless blend of ink and cardstock. I'll move down the values of ink to darker and darker colors, like what you would do if you were watercoloring. With Rouge Fresh Dye ink and an Altenew Mini Ink blending brush, I'll apply a gradient of this ink starting from the center of the petal grouping to the tips. I'll make sure to leave a little blush highlight at the tip of the petal. Then moving down the value of inks, I'll apply a layer of crimson, ensuring that I don't cover up the rouge blend. Then I'll go all the way to velvet ink, creating a gradient from blush, rouge, crimson, and velvet on each petal. What really saves me some time when making blooms like this is to dedicate a mini ink blending brush set to each color family. I recommend 8 sets of the mini ink blending brushes. Each set has 4 brushes that match the value of inks found in each Altenew fresh dye ink set. This means you can have a set of brushes for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, brown, and gray. I supplement mine with blue-green and red violets, and even a single one just for black. I wanted a really dramatic center to this Amaryllis, so I used a jet black fresh dye ink to create some vivid contrast between the petal tips and the flower center. For the white cardstock stamen layer, I'm using blush ink to add color nearly to the anther section. Then I'll use crimson to create a deeper blend. On the smaller anther image, I'm using Citrus Burst from Pocketful of Sunshine to apply a quick solid layer of color. I'm going to take this petal painting a step further with some vein details. There are already some debossing details on the petals of the Craft a Flower Amaryllis, but I want to create more definition in them. In the Altenew Woodless coloring pencil set, I'm picking Ruby Red to add feathery strokes starting from the center of the flower, getting finer at the tips of the petal. I'm matching the direction of the debossing veining lines of the cardstock. I feel like this is such an easy detail to add to die cut petals that makes more movement in the bloom. And all I have to do is make these light sketched lines to make this paper look more like real petals. Once I've added enough colored pencil, now I can start gluing all these pieces together. So again, just like the Altenew Craft a Flower packaging, I'll start with the number 1 layer and work chronologically. I'm using my favorite liquid adhesive to apply a small ring of glue around the arrow cutout. Then I'll move on to the second layer, looking through the arrow cutout to match the number 1 layer underneath. Then for this small number 3 layer, I'll align the cutout to the number 2 layer. Before I glue down the stamen layer to the number 3 cutouts, I'll add the small yellow anthers. Alternatively, you could have used a glitter cardstock or mirror cardstock on this anther layer for a little shiny impact in the flower center. Then for this final Amaryllis layer, this small outwardly folded petal covers the arrow cutout and matches the shape of the shadow layer underneath. You can apply more glue if you want, but I like to curl my petals with my fingers so that they pop out of the card. But before I do any of that, I'll make sure my glue is for sure dry before manipulating any of the fine cardstock layers. Here's the final Amaryllis assembly with some ink blended and penciled details. But I think this flower needs a friend, so let's look at another example of Altenew's Keyhole system. I picked Craft a Flower Epiphyllum to accompany the Hippeastrum, or what we call Amaryllis. Both flowers require a winter dormancy with low light and cooler temperatures in order to complete the bloom cycle, none of which I'm experiencing right now as temperatures exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyway, I want this flower here, the forward-facing one. This is the Keyhole cutout layering set, and unlike the Amaryllis, this set comes fragmented instead of grouped, so that you have more control over the layer colors. I'm using this to my advantage by cutting the first image in a different color than the rest of the layers, which I'll cut from white cardstock. And you can be assured that even though this first layer looks really large, it will fit in your cardstock sets made for the Mini Blossom die cutting machine. I cut this first layer from Buttercream in the Summer Afternoon Gradient cardstock set. Here's the dry fit again of this Keyhole layer set. Notice how much of the first layer is covered up by the rest of the petals. This means I'll have to bring my ink blended gradients pretty far up to be noticed. So as long as you make with your Altenew Craft a Flower series, I hope that you make this pivotal step first before adding your beautiful details. Now I'm ready to ink blend on these blooms. I'm going to start with the sepal layer in the epiphyllum. This is what I cut from buttercream cardstock. And from the same summer afternoon color family as the cardstock, I'll use the coordinating inks. I'll move down to the next color value and a mini ink blending brush to apply a base of warm sunshine. I applied a base of caramel toffee, but then changed my mind to warm up the base of the sepal a bit more with Snapdragon Fresh Dye ink. This ink comes from Golden Sunset Fresh Dye ink set. While that first layer dries, I'll use 2 ink families to color these white petals. I'll use a base of Icy Lemonade from Wood Warbler Fresh Dye ink set and Aloe Vera from Forest Trail Fresh Dye ink set because I wanted an overall white impression of the flower but with yellow-green and green-yellow undertones. And as I'm applying layers of this ink, I find it important to keep dry fitting the layers so that the white tips of the petals do not get lost in the group. Enough of the aloe vera and icy lemonade blend is showing through the layers underneath so that the white petal tip of the next layer is supported by a light halo of green and yellow. Then for the stamen layer, I'll apply a halo of icy lemonade mixed with warm sunshine, just to separate the stamens from the center of the flower, so it's not all the same yellow-green, green-yellow mix. And you'll see this is the layer that covers the keyhole opening in the set of dies. Just like the Amaryllis flower, I'm using Woodless coloring pencils to add very faint veining details to the flower. I started with limeade, woodless coloring pencils to apply a few strokes, but then I moved on to Moonrock pencil to add more shadow veins to replicate the delicate paper-like blooms of the night blooming epiphyllum. Again, the dry fit is important to make sure that the strokes are visible underneath all the layers above it. Although it might look like there's a lot of work in each layer, the effort makes all the difference when fully assembled. Now let's glue down this keyhole cutout epiphyllum. Again, in chronological order, the debossed first layer is our base. Then comes the second layer to this bloom. That's the first set of white petals. Then the third layer has a partial keyhole cutout, but it has enough reference lines to match with the second layer underneath. Finally, we have the last white petal layer. And then to cover the keyhole cutout is the stamen and anther layer. You can't really go wrong with this layer as there's not an obvious reference point, but as long as the keyhole is covered, then you've got the right placement. So here are the 2 blooms together, and that finishes the basics of the innovative keyhole system from Altenew. But we haven't finished this card yet, so let me quickly go through that so that you can get on with seeing a finished card bouquet. Foliage is so important for framing your flowers. It is your backdrop that balances the arrangement of your flowers, so I take this into consideration too when making my card bouquets. I'll use Emerald in the Seashore Gradient cardstock set to cut all the foliage layers. In this fantasy bouquet, I'll mix foliage from both Epiphyllum and Amaryllis. I know I won't be using the entire die cut image, so I want to make sure that I have enough of the shadow or darkness in the base of the leaf so that the flowers visually jump out at the card recipient. To achieve this, I'm creating high blends of Lagoon first, then Emerald. Both of these inks are from the Seashore Fresh Dye ink set. Then to match the depth of the Amaryllis flower, I'll also add a layer of jet black to the base of some of the leaves so that there is contrast among the foliage layers. I made a very simple background with one of the stencils in the July 2024 Build a Garden Sulfur Cosmos. Build-A-Garden is another floral subscription service from Altenew if you love layering stencils and coordinating stamp images. This bundle happened to contain a background stencil, and with this stencil I'll apply a light halo of Morning Frost from Warm Gray Fresh Dye ink set on white cardstock. I have a large ink blending tool to cover a larger area. The arranging step involves a lot of thinking and manipulating the paper. I have an entire class at Altenew Academy called Elements of Floral Composition, where I cover my card making methods for beautifully balanced bouquets. I touched on a few of these tricks over at Concord and 9th Summer Camp as well, where I last saw Jennifer and a bunch of my favorite card making friends. After carefully arranging the foliage, I thought what better way to embellish this card than with some splatter. I used splatter to balance out the thoughtful process of arranging with some random and imperfect array of jet black and pure white ink. Then finally, this card needs a sentiment. Label Love stamp set from Altenew is still one of my favorites, and I reach for it a lot. I stamped this in Morning Frost Fresh Dye ink, and use layers of foam tape to raise it up on the bouquet. If this is your first view of the Keyhole system from Altenew, let me know what you think in the comments. I hope I showed you how easy it is to create paper flowers that look and feel real. Special thanks to Jennifer McGuire's team for letting me share another video on the channel. It's always such a privilege to share what I love doing, just like she has done for all of you. I'm most active on Instagram if you want to see more flowers and possibly a few cat photos. And I've got a playlist over at the Altenew YouTube channel called Perfect Pairings with Jaycee. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you very much, Jaycee. I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I did because I could watch Jaycee create flowers for hours. I will link below in my YouTube description to all the supplies that he used, but I will also link to his class and where you can find more of his work. At the end here, I'll link to Jaycee's other guest videos here on the channel. I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.